Dick Johnson off pole position in the Shell Sierra. Out of position 2, we'll have Glenn Seaton in the Peter Jackson Sierra. Out of position 3, his teammate Wayne Park in the second of the Sierras. Jim Richards in the first of the GTRs out of position 4, with his teammate Mark Skate out of position 5. Position 6, John Bowe, the second of the Shell Sierras. Out of position 7, Mark Gibson, another Nissan GTR. Out of 8, Thomas Mazira in the HRT Commodore. Out of position 9, Colin Bond in the Caltech Sierra. And rounding out the 10, Larry Perkins in the Commodore VL. Position 11, 05, Peter Brock in the Mobile Commodore. Position 12, Tony Longhurst in the little BMW. 13, Neil Cropton in the Mobile 1 Commodore. 14, Alan Jones in the second BMW. And rounding out the 15, Terry Finnegan in the Foodtown Commodore.
And a tremendous atmosphere settling over a very, very big crowd here at Sandown this afternoon. And it's getting bigger all the time. We have Dick Johnson on pole position, as Marcus pointed out. We've heard from Dick. Glenn Seaton's ready to go. We're 10 away from round 2, heat 1 this afternoon. And the Sierra's looking good at Sandown. Off to the start, the 2 Nissans just light up the racetrack, and they are long gone down into turn number 1. The Sierra sat there buzzing wheels, trying to get off the mark. They couldn't do it. The 2 Nissans will lead them down to the right-left, with probably a very, very short break over Dick Johnson. And yes, that's the way it is. Hard to get all that power through those fairly narrow tyres, Alan.
Sierras, admittedly, the GTRs also have the turbo problem, but with the traction of the four-wheel drive, it just absolutely slingshots them from any position they're in.
Look at this, up on the outside, we're talking about horsepower, and that's how quick the Sierras have been here since Friday at Sandown, as Johnson, with a huge cheer coming up the crowd, sits in behind Jimmy Richards. And there's our Dunlop race cam as we come up to the inside.
Make no mistake, this Turbo Ford is still a pretty fast car, and certainly in Dick Johnson's hands, a very effective tool around Sandown.
Great shot.
As Alan said earlier in the day, Dick really loves this circuit.
Yes, the opportunity now for Dick to slingshot onto the main straight. He's got a fairly big car in front of him, and his ability to draft the Nissan on the straight. I think you'll find under brakes he'll nail him.
Well, here they come, past the start-finishing line for the first time. And Johnson, sitting in the draft of Jim Richards, pulls to the outside, and there he goes. But Richards comes back under brakes. Crowd got a huge thrill out of that. Johnson tacks in behind the Winfield Nissan. Great shots here from our Dunlop race cam. And John Bowe, in the second of the Dick Johnson cars, has made a brilliant start. Keeping in mind, John was the fastest man here yesterday. Car packed up this morning in the 3-lap trophy dash, blew an engine. They've repaired an engine in just over an hour, and he's back and playing rear gunner here. And now comes up the outside of Johnson. No,
they're doing well. I was surprised that Dick didn't get Jim at the end of that straight. He was looking in a very good position, but the brakes on the GTR are superb, and Jim was able to hold him off. This is a tricky part of the circuit, very tricky. Whistling down through the S's. A tight left-hander here. No chance for any passing in this position, but John Bowe has already replaced Dick as a challenge to Jim Richards, and we'll see how it unfolds coming up onto the straight this lap.
It's a very spirited run from John Bowe. He really has been the pace man in the opening rounds of the Shell Touring Car Championship this year. He was fastest in both sessions at Sandown in qualifying, and climbed onto a provisional pole with a blistering lap yesterday, only to lose it in the clash for cash this morning.
Here he comes, down the outside as we take the Nissan race cam. And Jimmy Richards will now try and come back under brakes, but John had that sussed out fairly well. He took him early in the straight, didn't wait till the last moment. So John Bowe of Tasmania leads heat number 1 today, round 2 of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship. Richards runs in second. Next is Dick Johnson and Mark Scaife in 4th place. This is where the Sierras like it, obviously, Alan, when you get them straight and you've got a long straight to play with.
Exactly, and here we have again an opportunity for the Peter Jackson team to stay in the hunt. They've got to stay close to those Nissans, take advantage of the slipstreaming they can get. Sandown's a very long circuit, 2 long straights, back and front, and if anybody gets away from you, you're out there pushing air by yourself, using up all your engine horsepower, and not getting the kind of speed that you really want.
Well, we saw the pass there with Jim Richards getting back past Dick Johnson. That shows you the gap as they come beneath the Dunlop Bridge. Richards goes through, then Dick Johnson, then Mark Scaife. Glenn Seaton fairly close to that front running 4 as they come past the pits and reel one more off. But I tell you what, And if John Bowe is going to conserve tyres, but he is getting it all to the ground now as he comes down the front straight. Fans love this, particularly the Ford fans. And Johnson starts out after Jim Richards. He'll pass him, but you'll find that Richards will have the lie to the left-hander.
Yes, there's no nasty driving there at all. It's Jim's prerogative to take the inside running. It's always force your opponent onto the outside, make him go a little extra distance, just like the runners on the relay running. You've got to take it the hard way around. And in that respect, Jim is just able to hold the Sierra off for another lap.
Well, the pace is picking up. John Bowles just recorded a 1:14.81, which is about just under a second off his qualifying time.
This is pretty heady stuff at the top of the pack, as here comes Jimmy Richards on the inside of Johnson. Johnson really needs to be where Jim is at that end of the straight, not on the outside.
No, he couldn't dare go from the outside there. That's a very tricky left-hander. It's 100-mile-an-hour plus, and certainly without the ability to drift the car through from the inside of the apex to the outside, down through the S's, you'd spin it in a flash.
Freddie Gibson and the Nissan boys are doing a terrific job with this GTR, even with its weight and power penalties. Mark Scaife's qualifying time yesterday was only 4/10 off the pole time they set here 12 months ago when the cars were in their full 600 horsepower form. So a lot of work going in on suspensions, brakes, tyres to get some more performance out of these GTRs, and they're certainly looking strong here at Sandown.
Well, the one who is making some ground up in fourth place, Glenn Seaton, in the number 30 Peter Jackson car, sits in fourth. John Bowe, I tell you what, has opened up a gap over the rest of this mob. You would think he was running on nitrous oxide. Let's have a look at the restart, or the replay of the start, actually, from our race cam sitting on top. There you'll see the power to the ground advantages of the GTR, because Glenn Seaton made a horrible start. Got gobbled up here by about 6 or 7 cars and then had to fight his way through. He's made it back up to fourth. Neil Crompton making life difficult here, but he got the run to the turn.
Well, you can't give anything away on any start, and certainly here at Sandown, where every inch onto those back straight counts, you're in trouble with a bad start.
And as we took that replay, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't in this business, but you can see that Dick Johnson has been able to get ahead of Jimmy Richards in car number 1. Now, they are clearly showing their superiority here today at Sandown, and I think that Glenn Seaton would like to be part of the action here, but he would like to displace, if he could, 2 Nissans along the way. Bowe leads it by 3 or 4 seconds. Johnson in second. Not too far behind is Jimmy Richards, Mark Scaife. Then, of course, comes Glenn Seaton and Thomas Mazzera in the Holden Racing Team Commodore.
Well, Johnson doing nicely. He is driving it hard. We indicated earlier, Mike, that he's fired up this weekend. He knows that he's got a good car. He certainly knows the circuit, and he'll be keen to try and just get that extra little bit up this back straight, and you'll certainly see him fading to the right of your picture now. There he is, quite entitled to guard the corner at the top of the hill, just in case Jim Richards comes up out of his draft, but Jim not actually close enough to do any damage at the moment. Glenn Seaton gaining on the draft up the back straight, and definitely a force to be reckoned with at the moment. He's quite capable. He's got enough laps in front of him to do exactly what Dick has done. Filter his way through, weave his way through these 2 GTRs. In fact, the GTRs are running so closely that they're creating a tremendous roadblock, a snowplow in front for the air, giving Glenn Seaton quite a nice opportunity here to sneak up on their back bumper bars.
We've got a brilliant day here at Sandown. The times are quick, good crowd in here, and a good race happening for us too. John Bowe in the Shell Sierra, car number 18, leads by 5.6 seconds from Queensland's King of Swing, Dick Johnson in the 17 car, and Glenn Seaton again getting close to the tail of Mark Scaife.
Shell team are doing a fabulous job with these Sierras this year. And we take race cam on the top of Glenn Seaton's Sierra. As he tries to hang on to the back of the Nissans. The Sierras and Nissans very evenly matched around Sandown.
This is all good stuff. With some great pictures from our race cam team. You can listen to the gears now as they start to work their way up the back straight, the incline, up to the bridge.
6-speed gearbox, Mike. All the cars, lead cars, have got 6-speed gearboxes, and certainly plenty of cogs to choose from. And I suspect that Mark Scaife is actually pulling out of the draft to keep his engine a little cooler. Heat on a turbocharger is anathema. They absolutely hate it. The power goes down as the heat goes up. So I think Mark was just pulling out to the left there to get out of Jim's slipstream, just to keep himself a little bit cooler. perhaps save himself for a bit of a slingshot later in the race himself, but
this could be interesting. I don't think he's close enough to get a shot at him this time down the straight, because Scaife does get off that pit turn pretty quickly. Here comes Seaton winding it up on the inside, but he'll run out of road before they get down to the next left-hander, maybe next time, but he'll have to cut a perfect lap sitting in behind Scaife this time. And Richards, as Alan has said, is starting to get away from Mark Scaife.
Well, Jimmy Richards, no stranger to Sandown. He's had some great laps around this circuit and some very substantial wins in his career. I don't think he's too concerned about where to place the steering wheel.
Mark Scaife leading this Nissan battle at the moment, also leading the championship after his success at Amaroo Park. He's on 30 points. His teammate Jim Richards on 27, Peter Brock on 24, Glenn Seaton on 21 points, and Mark Gibbs on 19. So it's very tight at the front of the grid here, and certainly in the championship battle.
Well, this is a circuit that really, the slightest mechanical advantage, the very slightest mechanical advantage, does give a team tremendous competitive edge. And we're seeing here now 4 cars running in tandem, practically the rest of the field. There's Thomas Mazzera coming through in the HRT, Holden now in picture, but virtually the rest of the field is out of this race, and it just shows the competitiveness of the lead teams. They get things down, they cut fractions of millionths of a second to get an advantage, and around a circuit like this, it just pays dividends every lap, Mike.
Well, we saw Peter Brock spring a surprise, of course, winning the opening heat at Amaroo Park. We expect a little more of Peter today. Qualified poorly, back in 11th spot, and he's drifted back to about 13th in the pack.
You can never tell exactly what compound tire is going to be the flavor of the month. The tire companies work very hard to produce a tire per circuit, but certainly with races on our schedule running a fortnight, a week to a fortnight apart, it's awfully hard sometimes not to use a tire that may not be exactly what you would have liked to. And I do believe that the Holden team at the moment is hurting for tires.
Well, Mark Scaife, of course, only 24 years of age. Career highlights. Naturally, won the Tooheys 1000 at Bathurst in 91. And, of course, finished second in the Australian Touring Car Championship by Shell in 91. And, of course, leads the 92 championship on 30 points, besides being Australian Gold Star champion. So he had a lot to do, and he accomplished quite a lot last year. Has his hands full at the moment, though, as we show the Nissan GTR coming off past the pits, trailing Jimmy Richards still at this stage. That gap back to Seaton about the same, and Bo opening up probably out to 6 points something now, seconds over Dickie Johnson.
Well, John Bowe certainly seems to have this race in hand. He's got nobody to worry him. This is maybe quite draining on the 2 Nissans, and also Dick Johnson worrying about his second spot.
Well, Bow's
trying to get by. He just doesn't seem to have enough steam to get up close enough to Mark Scaife to do what Dick Johnson did earlier.
No.
Bow's the only guy running in the 15s at the moment, and he's certainly opening up the lead. There's the HRT Commodore. We won't see a lot of this car this year. I think they're only scheduled to run 3 rounds, but boy, they're on the pace. I think Thomas was 1.5 seconds faster than Brock in qualifying, and the car had an unfortunate tail shaft failure this morning in the warm-up, but that won't slow them down. Thomas really enjoying his job with Holden Racing Team, and certainly showing a lot of competitiveness too.
He's up to 6th in the pack. Thomas Mazzera doing a good job as he comes down to the left-hander. Pity they're not really running the entire Touring Car Championship. I mean, it is Holden's flagship, and hand-picking 3 of 8 or 9 races.
Not a big effort, really, is it? Any privateer
well, I don't
could do
think
that.
so,
Yeah.
particularly when you want some of the rules changed. I think most of the Holden spotlight this year is certainly going to fall on Peter Brock, Neil Crompton, Terry Finnegan, some of those guys. But Thomas doing a good job. Not complaining about Thomas. He's out there driving when he's allowed to drive, or when they have enough budget. But I would have thought a Holden Racing Team enterprise controlled it by Scott.
Well, you
Maybe
know where they like to keep their money.
Yeah, I think Tom does. I think Tom should get the message about touring cars in Australia. Getting it pretty tight up here with Dickie Johnson and Jim Richards as we take Nissan Racecam.
Well, we're getting towards the stage of this heat that if Dick Johnson hasn't been nursing his tires, he's got a good set of Dunlops on there today that have been serving him well over the last 2 days. But if he starts thrashing it around a little bit, it's going to be, it could be curtains for him if Jim sneaks up there. We know how durable the 4-wheel drive gets towards the end of a race, and he's certainly not what you call a long way away from Dick at the moment.
No, he's fairly close. Great shots as they come beneath the Dunlop Bridge. Single file into the right-hander. Johnson still there, looking for a 1-2. John Bowe, teammate, leading this race by 6.9 seconds. They've covered the halfway distance, plus 1 lap this time past the start-finishing line.
Well, Jim Richards starting to pile on the pressure. He's slipped into the 15s now, a 15.8 recorded there, and Bowe has jumped up into the 16s. So maybe we might be seeing the tyres starting to play a few tactics in this element.
Well, I'm sure they will, no matter what. This circuit is not all that hard on the tires up and down the main straights, obviously. But the cars still have to be thrown through these zigzag corners on the approach to each straight. They're quite demanding. They're 90-degree corners, and as careful as you try to use all the real estate on the road and make the job of the tire easier, there does come a time when you've got a fellow on your backside that you do push the car to its limit and naturally hurt the tires. But Dick Johnson holding his own here in second spot. His teammate out in front. A nice 1-2 for Shell here in the opening heat, followed by the 2 Nissan GTR Winfield cars, and then Glenn Seaton in the first of the blue Peter Jackson Sierras.
Bowe has opened the gap over the boss, 7.34 seconds on lap 11, so we're beyond half distance, and Bowe stabilising the lead at the front. The 2 Shell cars showing a lot of form now. Sierra's getting on a bit. It's 6th year in competition, and the Shell team have just taken on Ross Stone as their team manager for this year, who formerly worked for the Kevin Waldock Playscape operation. Ross is obviously doing a terrific job with the old Fords. And Tony Longhurst commented yesterday in practice, he's never seen the Sierras handling so well. He's really impressed with the development they're getting out of these cars.
It turned out to be, or it started off to be, a pretty crook day for Dick Johnson's team, as I mentioned at the top of the show, with John Bowe again yesterday, provisional pole, as he had at Amaroo Park. They went to the trophy dash where the top 6 actually draw for starting positions. John retained his front row starting spot. He drew 2, and then of course took off, looked like he was going to win it, and then the engine just detonated, and as a result of that, Dick Johnson went through to win and gain pole position. But Bowe has done a remarkable job in this field, starting out of position number 6.
Now that is very creditable, Mike, and I think
check out that as we come back. Race score: John Bowe is your race leader in the Shell Sierra. Dick Johnson runs in second. Jimmy Richards is third. Mark Skaife fourth. Glenn Seaton is fifth, and we'll be back at Sandown in just a sec. Back here at Sandown Raceway, a problem for Colin Bond, the Caltex CXT Sierra. Colin was running around about 8th in the field, was settling into quite a good groove, but all of a sudden the car has given up the ghost and gone towards the pits on lap number 15, with approximately 5 remaining in this first heat of round 2, the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship from Sandown. Johnson going through in car number 17. The 2 Nissan still trailing. We won't worry Dick with race cam at this stage, but Alan, you might be able to talk us around and exactly what Dick is doing and gears and the brakes.
Right, he just slammed her down from 6th down to 5th through the S's into 4th.
Down to second, I am.
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. You're going to have to give me a ride here to refresh my memory. Okay, up to 3rd. Do it yourself, mate. You can talk your way through. You don't need me.
Yeah, really. There's oil everywhere here, pal.
Uh-huh. Easy here on the left-hander. You had a little nudge here this morning in the trophy dash. Here we go. Nasty onto the straight. It's bumpy over the causeway.
Dick, this looks pretty good. Bowie's taken off like a scalded cat.
He must have my engine.
He must have. Someone's pulled a crook change on you this morning. He's opened up to about 6.5.
Yeah, I know. That's the gun engine I think they had for me for Simmons.
That's the one with the 8,500 RPM rev limiter on, is it?
Obviously.
Just keep going the way you are, mate. You're doing fine.
Oh, well, you just got to try and keep the tyres on the thing.
Well, how much of a problem does that give you? I mean, obviously you 2 guys are running at a fair pace. Bowie out 8.5 seconds now to you, and the 2 Nissans dropping back a bit. Can you conserve tyres?
Well, it's just that the Nissans are so quick out of the slow corners that they just leave you standing. It takes everything to pick them up the straight to be able to pass them.
Well, I tell you what, I notice they're getting a bit closer again, banging on your butt, so we'll let you go. You put the head down.
Well, I'm just trying to keep the like another 20 laps to do after this, buddy.
Yeah, well, I'll talk to you during that, but at the moment they're getting a little bit closer. Go for it.
Thanks.
Okay, Dickie Johnson.
Bowell still running in the 1:16-minute time frame for his lap times. Johnson in the low 17s, so the pace is stabilising, but certainly a bit slower than when they started the race. And these guys, obviously, as Dick was saying, will be trying to look after their tyres because they've still got another whole heat to go.
Well, got 4 laps remaining. John Bowe, the race leader, by 8.8 seconds over Dick Johnson in the 17 car. Dick's under a little bit of pressure here. 0.5, Peter Brock and Neil Crompton in the number 7 Mobile Commodore. It's not the best of days so far for the Mobile team. Brock up to 10th though, so that's an improvement. He was out to 13th. Colin Bond has dropped out though, and the Gibbs GIO Nissan not doing all that well. It's deep in the pack here today as well. There's Brocky wheel hiking.
Well, Sandown is a demanding driver's course, Mike, and I don't think, to be fair to the interstate teams, they get as much time around the circuit as some of the locals, and a little bit difficult to nail this place down. Peter Brock's obviously had 10 million laps around here, or maybe 9.5 million, and has done very well on many of those laps. But today I do think they're just a little bit off the pace. They couldn't come to grips with it yesterday, and if you can't qualify well, you can't slingshot yourself into the lead. That's just a physical impossibility.
So Brock having somewhat of a battle. 3 laps remaining in this first qualifying heat as he locks up the inside. Crompton still running there in 11th spot, back behind his team partner. Nothing much has changed at the front. They've all opened up big gaps. John Bowe out to almost 9 seconds over Dick Johnson. Then, of course, the 2 Nissans. Glenn Seaton sitting behind them as Brock and Crompton reel them off just into the top 10. But still a long way behind Thomas Mazera and also Larry Perkins, who is a starter here today, and he's up running at the moment in 7th spot.
Well, that's pretty commendable for Larry. He didn't have the benefit of a run at Amarillo, so he's running cold here for the first time. But a BMW on his back door, slipstreaming him. I can't quite see whether that's Alan or Tony.
BMW of Tony Longhurst, car number 25, stalking Larry Perkins. Larry, of course, is up to 7th spot. Longhurst, the best of the BMWs, in 8th posse, and still trying to change that. They've got 2 laps to go here at Sandown in the first heat, and Tony all over the tail here of Larry Perkins, and just about gets him all sized up in these very tight turns, but as soon as they hit the straight, Larry gets the grunt of that V8 going and is able to pull away from the Bimmer.
Well, every position counts here, Mike, because the finishing order of this heat is how they line up for the start of the second heat. So certainly Tony, 1 more point even, get by Larry, gives him another nice starting position for the second heat. Doesn't have to work his way all the way up from the back of the field.
And of course the Bimmer's running 20 kilos lighter here today. They obviously had a fairly good proposition put to cams that they were carrying far too much weight, and in just one show, that's called instant justice, isn't it? 20 kilos off the Bimmer.
Can I pass on this hand?
Yes, I think you should. There's our 2 Nissan GTRs, the 2 Winfield entries. Jimmy Richards, Mark Scaife. Great high shot showing them coming beneath Dunlop Bridge and then turning into the pit turn. Should get the 1 lap to go board now as they go across the strike.
John Bowe still leading by around 8.5 seconds, so he's certainly got this race by the neck.
Mark Scaife running in 3rd spot. Jim Richards has dropped back a spot to 4th, and Glenn Seaton is 5th. That's the order, with one of the Bimmers coasting around the circuit. May well be Alan Jones. Doesn't sound like there's a lot of noise coming out of the car. He heads up the back straight now for the final time, and I'll tell you what, some folks in Tasmania who take in the 7 telecast will be delighted with this, because the next round of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship is next Sunday at Simmons Plains Raceway near Launceston, and that, of course, is not too far away from where John Bowe has been brought up. So he'll have a huge Tasmanian support behind him for next week's 3rd round of the championship.
Well, Well, he has worked hard with the Dick Johnson team for a number of seasons, probably about 5 to my memory, and has backed up Dick on many occasions, but today he's taking the lead and showing us how to do it.
Sure is. And it's good to see him come in for a win. He's really had pole position for the last 2 races, but he comes off the pit turn. Checkered flag time for John Bowe of Tasmania. He's going to do it very comfortably indeed. A 9-second break over team leader Dick Johnson in the number 17 car. 3rd place will go to Mark Scaife in the Nissan GTR. 4th to Jimmy Richards. And 5th will go to Glenn Seaton in the Peter Jackson Ford Sierra. Well, it looked like being a benefit for the Winfield GTRs, but they were able to be pegged back. The checkered flag goes out for John Bowe as we check them out on the Shell race score. Well done, John. John Bowe, your race winner. Dickie Johnson finishes in 2nd spot, a 1-2 for the team. Mark Scaife in the Winfield Nissan 3rd. Jimmy Richards is 4th, and Glenn Seaton in the PJ Sierra rounds out the 5. And we'll be back at Sandown in just a moment.
And the field moves up onto the front straight at Sandown after a couple of aborted starts. Difficult to try and get these cars off the line today. We've had some problems. Let's take a look at the way they're going to line up for round 1 of the Tooheys Gold Star. And Mark Scaife has pole position with a 69.08. Alongside him, Simon Kane, just 4 tenths slower. Then Drew Price in 3rd position. From 4, it's Ron Searle, 27. From 5, John Briggs, car number 10. From position 6, we have Stephen Cramp in a Reynard 89D, in fact. Chris Hocking is behind him, position 7. Ron Barnacle, position 8. Brian Sampson in 9. Lucio Cesario in the Rolt, position number 10. Car number 16. Just outside that group, we've also got Mark Larkham, who's running a Reynard 90D, one of the new look Formula Brabhams for 1992. We've now taken it one step further with this class, and we welcome British Formula 3000 regulations in terms of chassis to this event, in this class, and so we've been able to import more up-to-date chassis, carbon fibre construction as used in the British and International 3000 Championships. 10 seconds is the signal. Green flag at the rear of the field means that everybody has their engine running. Drivers put the cars in gear. Let's get this thing on the road with a green light as quickly as we can. And Scaife makes a good jump, but Kane has stalled. The car's spluttering. Let's hope he doesn't get clouted. I think the field gets through cleanly.
Yeah, they've all snuck past.
Disaster for Simon Kane, the national champion in 1990.
They squeeze through that very tight corner at the top of the straight. There's Scaife in the Winfield Spa. Head of the Eastern Creek Shrike with Ronnie Searle aboard. And John Briggs, I believe, in 3rd as they head up the back straight for the first time.
Dreadful start from Simon Kane. I think he's up and running okay again now. But it's Scaife. Oh, slowing dramatically at the end of the back straight. And Ronnie Searle goes by.
Well, with all the starts, Neil, he's probably lucky that whether he's got any plates left in his clutch. He may be nursing it.
He seemed to have a bad run out of that corner, but he's picked him up on the way down the hill.
Ooh, Scaife having a look on the inside. Mark and the Winfield team have ordered 91 model Lola in this carbon fibre construction that'll be used in the latter part of this championship. For the moment, they're sticking with the car that they ran so successfully last year at Eastern Creek, and of course Mark picked up the national championship and wears the number 1 plate. But it's Ron Searle, ex-Formula Ford man, car number 27, the Eastern Creek car built by the Adelaide TAFE College, Croydon Park, prepared by Mike Quinn, and he's doing a great job. He's got a small gap. Scaife's in 2nd place, being assaulted by Drew Price in a Rolt RT20. Good time from Drew in practice. The car's pretty pitchy and wobbly there, but he's very competitive.
This is a great run from Ron Searle. He's had a lot of experience in the Formula Brabhams, mainly a Formula Ford man, doing the Formula Ford Championship again this year. And he's certainly got good form here at Sandown in this opening round.
John Briggs also making a comeback to the class, and Steve Cramp, there's Cesario, car number 16, making his way to the pit, so he's got a problem.
Lucio's got a flat tyre, it seems. It's a bit of bad luck for the guy.
Look at the gap. 2 car. Have a look at this gap that Ron Searle's generated. This is tremendous. Car that's probably not quite as quick as the SPA. Certainly didn't qualify nearly as quickly.
It's quicker today, Neil.
Yeah, they've done a great job getting this car into a good race trim.
And Mark Poole did very well in a Shrike chassis in 1990.
Steve Cramp also mixed up in that group. He's got a Reynard 89D from the UK. This is one of the carbon fibre cars. And these other cars that we're looking at now are constructed from honeycomb aluminium. The tubs are all honeycomb aluminium and various aluminium componentry. But the car that Cramp drives is Drew Price, has a big go on the outside.
So
Doesn't quite get through.
Would think Scape's got a problem here because he seems to be very slow coming out of the corners onto the straights.
Wouldn't surprise me, like Alan said a moment ago, if he had a little problem with perhaps clutch or gearbox, but who knows, we're in a commentary box. But
it's a great run from Ronnie Searle with a Shrike. I remember when Mark Paul campaigned a similar car to this in 1990. His main complaint was quite a difficult car to set up, but he certainly came very close to winning the championship that year.
Here's the Reynard I mentioned on the right-hand side, the blue and white car. That's a Rolt RT21 on the left. John Briggs at the helm, a car owned by Dave Moore, driven by John Smith a couple of seasons ago, and Rowan Onslow's had a go in it as well, and Keith Carling. Here the car's just bottoming out as they go over the top of the rise there. Very low ride heights, get great ground effect benefit from the floors in these cars. They're powered by a 3.8 litre V6 fuel-injected Holden engine. Fastest racing cars in Australia, you can see by the lap time, 69 odd seconds around Sandown. They're not mucking about, and if you can get one trimmed just right and get the thing working perfectly, you can just about get over the end of that back straight flat.
36-year-old Drew Price tucks into second place there. 8 times Australian karting champion, spent some time with Toyota Team Australia, very successful in Corollas. And now he's taken his turn in the open wheelers and he's really relishing this task.
Well, anybody with some past car experience, car control, with the infinite settings that you can get out of a single-seater race car, if you don't have it working for you, it's your own fault, isn't it, Neil?
That's very true, Alan, and I guess that's the biggest single difference between a car with a roof and this type of car, and you can just fine-tune to perfection if you've got enough time and money, and there are no compromises in the way the car's handled. It's 160 mile an hour through that fast left hand at the end of the back straight, and it's so rough down here, it tends to bounce your feet out of the footbox in the cars. Very hard to pull them up for that tight left-hander. A second gear corner and then shoot back out under the Dunlop Bridge and off on another lap. Very little between these leading two cars. We've got Drew Price tucked right in behind Ron Searle. Mark Scape certainly struggling in third place at the moment. But this is a great start to the Tooheys Championship for the Australian Drivers Gold Star Award. And who would have thought that the Croydon Park car would be the pick of the bunch today? But Ron Searle doing a magnificent job.
Really got his hands full here though. Drew Price absolutely filling his mirrors with the blue and white car. Ron will be really feeling the pressure now.
Half race distance, it was a shortened race because of the problems at the start. We have an 8-lapper rather than the 10. So the grin on Ron's face will probably be getting a little bigger if he's just praying for that checkered flag. Those three guys have now opened up a gap over John Briggs and Stephen Cramp. But I'm really excited, Mark, by the prospect of these new cars in the country. This is going to make our fields larger. It puts our young blokes right in tune with modern race car technology, and any young bloke with the will, the money, the determination and the skill to be able to go on to Europe and get into Formula 3, Formula 3000 and so on is going to be better prepared if he can drive an up-to-date race car, and that's what these sort of things are. There's Steve Cramp, that's a Reynard 89D model. And there's also a 90 model here as well. Last year in the 91 International Formula 3000 Championship, the Reynard was the very successful car, designed by your brother, in fact. I don't know how that happened. It must have been a mistake.
Can't be too many Ostlers around.
Oh, and the Hocking car spins at the back of the field there.
Saved it nicely with that Armco waiting for him if he had been going much faster. With a big 360.
Wait for the whole field to pass.
Intensely competitive category in Japan, Britain and across Europe, Formula 3000. It's very much the understudy formula for tomorrow's Formula 1 drivers. Cars are very stiffly sprung, very rigid in the cockpit. A lot of emphasis on aerodynamics. And the brave boys that run these things in those three countries and can get to the front of the field are tomorrow's Formula 1 drivers. And
now you've had experience of converting one of these 3000 cars to a V6 Holden engine. How much does it affect the dynamics of the car when it's set up for, say, a 450 horsepower Cosworth or Mugen V8?
Well, obviously, when I drove a car with a Judd V8 in a round of the British Formula 3000 Championship, those engines are much sweeter, they rev further, and there's just generally more car speed. But the V6 Holden's a little bit heavier now. We have 2 laps to go, incidentally, Mark. The V6 Holden's a little bit heavier, but has almost the same torque value, so requires the same sort of driver skills to be able to get the car across the corner and out of the corner cleanly. We have to change our shock absorber and spring balance and just the general balance of the car to compensate for that. But the cars are still very good to drive, and I've got a real soft spot for them. I love them. I think they're tremendous. They're probably as fast and as thrilling a vehicle as you can drive. This is Mark Larkham, Reynard 90D. He's in 9th position. Poor old Mark this weekend in the Mitre 10 car, which is owned by Peter Boylan, the fellow that owned my cars for the last couple of years. He's just had the most disgusting weekend. They just got the car into the country in time, rebuilt the engine, got it all on there, and they keep having some gearbox hassles this weekend. They didn't think they were going to make it, but it's fabulous that they could. Look at the assault for the lead from Drew Price down the inside, tears the wing off, Searle goes into the fence. Goodness me, desperate stuff. All this plays into the hands of Mark Scaife. Side by side down to the right-hander. Scaife, he's going to get through. Unbelievable
lap
stuff.
to go. That just fell into very nicely to Mark Scaife's hands. Now he takes the lead. Drew Price gets pushed back to second, and the guy who's been leading the race from lap 1.
That's incredible.
And he's sitting over there in the sand trap, the nose of the car, and Drew Price sneaks past Scaife again. Scaife definitely has a straight line problem with this car, but he really nails him back under brakes.
Look at Drew's car. Gee, it looks a bit ugly in the bumpy stuff down there, but Ron Searle, a problem in that left-hander at Dandenong Road. We'll take a look at that and see precisely what happened. We're on the last lap. Now, Drew made a big lunge down the inside, tried to straight line the corner, just clipped his wing, and it was enough to upset Ronnie's car. Gets out in the marbles, tries to put some opposite on it, can't recover it, bang, into the fence. Won't be much damage, but he'll have plenty of steam coming out his ears.
And he won't be buying him a drink after the race either.
No.
I think it was fairly uncalled for, to tell you the truth.
Perhaps a little bit desperate, but Drew's in the lead at the moment. Look at the bodywork. The left side pod on the Rolt's looking a bit skew-whiff, and now Scaife has got to make the all-time lunge. He's going to try and do what Drew did. The danger with that is that you saw what happened. You can just understeer off in those marbles. Now Mark's got to have another big go here if he can do it. Remember that he's the reigning champion in this class.
And he lost a bit of speed coming out of the corner. He was so heavy on the brakes trying to get inside Drew.
His big wish is to be the Australian Touring Car Champion, Bathurst winner, and the Australian driving champion. He's shaking his head in disbelief. There's obviously something wrong, but Drew Price is going to record a fabulous win, and congratulations to him and his team. The Rolt RT20 takes the checkered flag. Drew Price the winner. Mark Scaife in second place. An enormous gap back to third place, and that's Steve Cramp. Great result for his new Reynard. More development to come there. And then a hefty gap then back, I think, to John Briggs, but I'll have to confirm that. So what an exciting opening round for the Tui's Australian Drivers' Championship, and the checkered flag going there to Drew Price. And race score tells the story. We'll get the top 5 for you there, and Mark congratulates Drew. Okay, Tui's race score shows Drew Price the winner in the Rolt RT20 from Mark Scaife in the Winfield Spa. Steve Cramp, a great result in the Reynard, third place. John Briggs is fourth in car number 10, and Ron Barnacle, a great drive, car number 4, position 5, and we'll have more motor racing after the break.
Ten seconds away from blast-off for the Melbourne Motor Show Production Car Classic here at Sandown. The round of the national title. Tony Scott and Kent Youlden go head-to-head off the line. And it's a good start too. Youlden, I think, got the break on the outside, but Scott picked it up very quickly. And look at them all nuzzling across to the inside of the circuit. There's no point getting caught one out and one back.
Tony Scott's got the hot line as they swing through, but Youlden rubbing fenders with him there. And in the inside was Terry Lewis, the guy who did so well at the Winfield Triple Challenge. So it's very tight as they come through the corner for the first time. But it's Commodore. Youlden gets pushed up on the ripple strips. Ken Douglas in there behind him. Peter Fitzgerald and Mal Rose. Very tight as they swing through for the first lap.
The exit from the left-hander, and they work their way up the long back straight at Sandown. It seems to take forever with the production car, but I'll tell you what, the leader has well and truly got away from the field.
Here comes the reigning Australian production car champion, Kent Youlden, in the new Falcon EBS. On the outside of him, Terry Lewis and Ken Douglas as a look down the inside. Remember, these guys put a tremendous race on here last year, and looks like we're going to get the same thing.
Brakes, boys, brakes.
Douglas on 2 wheels on the tar, 2 wheels on the grass, dust everywhere, but he manages to sort it out, hold on to 4th place. So it's Commodore, Falcon in the first lap of this tremendous production car series.
Now they take it seriously.
They seem to be. I don't know the fellow what Douglas thought he was doing with one wheel in the dirt up there at 100+ miles an hour, but it's his neck, not ours. Obviously, Tony Scott wanting to avenge his misfortune at Amaru a fortnight ago, and certainly doing that to good effect here today.
Yes, the car was effectively written off at Amaru, Allen, and they've installed the new VP body shell. The car has been built from the ground up once again, and showing a good turn of speed as they come down the main straight for the first time. Terry Lewis tucks into second place, and there is a duel. Melrose hanging on as they come under brakes, darting and diving all over the place. Virtually a stock standard suspension setup, and these things really suffer over the bumps. Look at the body roll. As Ken Douglas comes up, puts 2 wheels on the outside, and car 41 getting out of shape as well.
A lot of momentum at the end of that straight. They're reluctant to put their foot on the brakes, but they have to pull them up as best they can. Standard brakes have never been a great attribute to a race driver's superannuation account.
This new Commodore is a really great machine, the 1992 VP. 3.8 litre fuel injected V6, that hasn't changed, but they've got some better gearing on the car, a new aerodynamic package, and the car seems to be working particularly well.
Last year, of course, Sandown hosted the second round of the Australian Touring Car Championship by Shell, and the support race for the production cars was the very best race of the season.
It was sensational.
Irrespective of any track that they went to. Great stuff.
Scott Lewis and the 2 Holdens, Kent Youlden into third. So swing back toward the main straight once again. Terry Lewis, a guy who's been around for about 10 years, but he really made his mark at the beginning of this year when he had a great scrap with Scott at the Winfield Triple Challenge at Eastern Creek. And he's since gone on, had a nasty, was involved in that wreck involving Tony Scott and Amaroo in the wet last weekend, or the weekend before, I should say. And he's looking very strong at Sandown here again today. Meanwhile, they're ducking and weaving. Ken Douglas battling with Peter Fitzgerald as they head toward the braking markers. Fitzgerald's won it as he swings through to lead the Falcon.
So I tend to think sometimes Peter could do this almost blindfolded. He's so good at just about anything that he runs. A little forceful from time to time, but
Has been known to scrape door handles, but he's a good professional driver. Been at it a long time and works hard for his sponsors, and doing well here today with his Goodyear Commodore.
2 times Australian Production Car Championship, 2 times runner-up. He also likes to drive Porsches in the Porsche Cup. As on the outside, I mean, you can't even see the other car virtually.
Oh, well, Melrose is on the right spot here.
Yep.
He doesn't want to back off. He'll slide around nicely.
It's Terry Bosniak on the outside, swings across. Melrose, no, he hasn't got the line. It's going to be door to door as they come down to this treacherous part of the circuit. Hard on the brakes all over the ripple strips.
Mel's got it now.
Mel is quite a charger.
He did well there.
Oh,
Both of them are fighting hard. They're extremely not giving away an inch, either one of them.
Tremendous stuff this. Melrose in a new car which he had this year, still lacking sponsorship, but still door to door. Unbelievable.
Well, they better decide this time to go single file, or they'll be landing up in the causeway. A little bit wide in the dirt there. That is a nasty corner there where the right rear just drops off into the dirt. Affects your slingshot onto the straight, but certainly we got a battle here between Melrose and
Terry Bosniak and
Terry
the
Bosniak.
Caltex Commodore. And that was a very good shot of just how evenly matched these cars are. They both had an equal run out of the corner, and they're still side by side.
Oh, he's worked that out quite nicely in case Rose got the wrong side out in the grass.
Something you'll always see with production cars. There's plenty of puffs of dust and dirt and rocks coming up. Not terribly responsive in the handling department, and they usually use a lot more real estate than they're supposed to.
All those curbs are getting a work over today. Good thing they're set in concrete, because they'd be chewed up badly if they weren't.
So the field opening up a little bit now with these 3 or 4 separate battles.
You get the impression that Bos and Jack's car just maybe have a little more grunt. But Mal is just driving where he needs to drive.
He's holding his own. He's in the right spot. But this, he's not giving up. He's having a hell of a go here.
Mal's taking a bit of defensive driving there, I think you'd call it out.
I would call that defensive. I would call that professional driving.
Yep.
But these cars where they have to bounce the curbs, not much fun going through the S's with your body roll in excess, as we saw there with the standard suspensions, or as standard as they're meant to be. They don't have the control that a Group A car has, that's for sure. And it's very hard for the drivers to, control their cars when you're 1 minute on dirt, 1 minute on a curb, 1 minute on bitumen.
Meanwhile, at the front, it's still Gary Scott ahead of Terry Lewis and Kent Youlden in third place ahead of Peter Fitzgerald.
But this is where the dice is. Everyone's single file by 50 or 60 metres.
These 2 guys are stuck together like glue. Melrose. Now, that's a brand new car.
There's going to be trouble here in a minute.
Would we like to put a few creases in that?
Jack will back out, will he? Yep. He was a little out of shape and had to do a bit of work to bring it back under control.
Well, I think Melrose is driving extremely well here today. Not that the other fellow isn't either. But it's timing when you make your mark. You have to know that you're going to be able to control a lunge, and you can't do that when you're out on the grass.
Well, there's been a lot of talk about this new Commodore, and it is a sensational car as far as production cars. Look at this, Terry Lewis, meanwhile, has taken the lead from Tony Scott, I should say. Tony Scott, who just set a new lap record for Sandown, a 1:30.99. So the Commodores really are on the pace at Sandown this weekend. The Ford boys are waiting for the new EB Series 2 Falcon to turn up later on in the year, which has a more powerful 4-litre engine, which might give them the edge back. But certainly the opening rounds of the Australian Production Car Championship, the Commodore seems to be the car to have.
Well, Mr. Nakamura getting a run here. I'm sure he'll be called to the boardroom any minute. Terry Lewis doing a nice number on Tony Scott.
29-year-old Terry Lewis lives in Newtown in Sydney. And he's really put his name on the Australian Production Car Championship this year. Looks like there's a bit of a wheel mark and a few dents along the door there.
Now, those are minor details in terms of keeping tires, brakes, engine, and gearbox together. But at half distance, we've got a reasonable fight here.
Most of those bumps, Alan, have been unintentional as well, just in the spirit of things, and we haven't seen too much in the way of shunts or guys overdriving themselves.
No, not at all.
So they head up this long, almost 1 kilometre long back straight at Sandown. Really is a power circuit, this.
Worst bit of straight in Australia when you see someone disappearing into the sunset, and I'd say those Ford boys at the moment would not be happy looking at the two Commodores doing just that to them. If we're half distance and 3-4 car lengths gap, it doesn't augur well for a photo finish.
No.
Tony Scott carrying the colours of Holden Motorsport. As I said at the beginning of the race, Holden and Ford certainly increasing their involvement in this category. Money and technical support, parts and body shells. So not only the competitors, but the factories are starting to take serious production racing very seriously.
Murray Carter, who we all know through his deeds in touring cars down through the years, running in series production today, and he is back in 14th spot as Murray, which is exactly where he qualified.
Sensational little car, the new Nissan Pulsar. I believe it was Wheels Car of the Year. 2-litre. The latest bits from Japan. It's certainly been a very popular car amongst the motoring press, and certainly the production car races this year too.
Well, they have about 3 3/4 laps remaining in the Melbourne Motor Show Trophy race.
Now here's the old protagonists, Kent Youlden, the reigning Australian production car champion, and Peter Fitzgerald in the Goodyear Commodore. Head to head as they go up the back straight once again. Fitzgerald really is a trier, and he won't be giving up on Kent Youlden until that flag falls.
He's got a long way to go to peg him back. And they go beneath the bridge. They look sensational through here. Quick lurch to the left, one to the right, and
It's that bounce to the middle of the S's that's so worrisome. They've got to be feeling that, and certainly not hanging on with any light grip on the steering wheel. If they're ever flipped out of their hands, they'd know all about it in a hurry. That's quite daunting. Straightforward here, right, left. Can't take too many chances here. And it's only counterproductive dropping it off out on the grass there. Well, it's hardly grass, but losing traction coming onto the straight. But it does look as if the Falcon is coming up closer.
3 laps to go. Alan, how would these modern production cars, handling-wise, compared to the old days of the GTHO Falcons and the Monaros of the early 70s? Would they be similar sort of things to drive?
From what I'm watching, I can certainly having a bit of reliving some old memories of the bouncing around from curb to curb. I'm led to believe that Group E is still basically standard, and as such, that's what the GTHOs were. Certain modifications, and I don't think anybody gave too much concern about what brake pads went into it, but essentially the dimensions of the car as it's produced is what must be raised.
Melrose
problems. Mel is into the pits. A couple of laps shy of the finish of today's Melbourne Motor Show production car race. Rose was positioned 7th. That's bad luck for him.
Yeah, great disappointment to Mel. He funds all the racing out of his own pocket. Travels a long distance to do the championship.
He had a good run at Amaru a fortnight ago, and he tried his best here today, and that's all you can do. Another day, another race.
So Kent Youlden up to 2nd place. Tony Scott gets demoted to 3rd, and Peter Fitzgerald in 4th place. So it's the Falcon doing better at Sandown in these closing laps, but still Commodore leads round 1 of the Australian Production Car Championship.
Well, it appears as if Tony Scott has overcooked something. He's slowing down. Youlden's got by. Now we've got
Fitzgerald takes him as well.
Doing the same.
Yep, there is a problem there. So we've lost Mal Rose, and Tony Scott would seem to be struggling as he came out of the corner. We'll see how he goes in this next lap. Well, doesn't seem to have slowed him down too much. I think he may have missed a gear or something coming out of that corner and just lost a little
Either
speed.
that or just an engine bin. The standard engines, they can take a belting, but if they start to get a bit uncomfortable and they just slowly seize up, they don't quite just do what happened to John Bowe this morning and stop instantly. They just go off the boil and generally not quite good enough to hold their own.
They've certainly stretched out.
Well, they've left
Except for
Tony,
this.
they've left Tony behind on the straight, and Ken Douglas is looming up behind Scott, so he might lose that position as well. Meanwhile, it's fierce stuff between Youlden and Fitzgerald in the closing laps of this opening race. It's just amazing. I was talking to Mal Rose before, just what a hammering these production cars take over a season. There's bits and pieces falling off them and things breaking and getting broken and bent. They really do take a hammering.
Last lap board about to come out as Terry Lewis leads them down the front straight. We're following Kent Youlden, and right behind him is Peter Fitzgerald, who's expected to apply quite a deal of pressure in the last lap of this race.
Here comes Fitzy, dives to the outside as they approach the braking area. But Youlden still has the line, having covered quite comfortably in the end. But you might find Fitzgerald getting up, particularly on the final lap. Right on his bumper now as they swing around to this crucial corner as they head on the back straight. Going to be looking for a good run out of here. Keep it nice and smooth. Uses all the road and a little bit more. Same with Fitzy. I think Lewis is out of trouble as long as he keeps it straight, but the battle for 3rd.
Yeah, Lewis has got a break of probably 4 or 5 cars over this group. Headed by Kent Youlden. And he's got a lot of grunt as they go up the top of the hill, staying to the inside. Fitzy's like the charge of the cavalry through here.
Watch them down through here. This is a treacherous part of the track. Over the ripple strips. Kent covering all the ground. He's got very hard on the brakes as the nose really dives and almost hits the tarmac. But he's still got Fitzgerald covered. So Lewis looking good for victory in round 1. But 2nd place still hasn't been sorted out yet as they approach the corners onto the straight for the last time. Both, and thanks very much.
Let him straighten up.
Oh, he should do it. He'll have the momentum. I think he'll nail him.
Bits of glass flying everywhere, and Kent is waving his fist. He's furious about that. They both got about the same sort of run out of the corner. Let's see how they end up as they approach the line. Terry Lewis has got first nailed down, but it's Fitzgerald, a car length or 2 up on Youlden. Bit of fisticuffs going on there, and I would wonder if there'll be some fisticuffs out of the car as well. He's looking very annoyed, the bear. Look at that, still waving his fist.
Well, I'm sure they'll have something to say when they meet back in the pits, hopefully in about 20 minutes, so they've both got time to cool down. No doubt about our race leader and our winner, car number 27, Terry Lewis. He collects the checkered flag as we check the Shell race score. Lewis the winner, Peter Fitzgerald runs 2nd. Kent Youlden will have something to say about 3rd. Kenny Douglas was 4th. Terry Bosanjak was 5th. Back here at Sandown Raceway, the drivers are preparing to gas up and go for heat number 2 of round 2, the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship. And can John Bowe do it again, Alan Moffat?
Well, he had a pretty good run
Well, he starts off pole position after winning the opening heat. Dick Johnson in the Shell Sierra starts out at 2. Mark Scaife in the Winfield Nissan out of position number 3. Jim Richards out of 4 in the second of the Nissans. From 5, it's Glenn Seaton. For position number 6, Thomas Mazira. Good drive that in the opening heat. Larry Perkins in the Commodore starts out of 7. 25, Tony Longhurst in the BMW out of 8. Out of 9 is Mark Gibbs in the GIO Nissan. And rounding out the top 10, Peter Brock in the Mobil 1 Commodore. And here's the scene at Sandown. A lot of people expecting Dick Johnson and teammate John Bowe to go on with it. But if you buy your television for heat number 1, you would have seen the way that the Nissan GTRs got off the line while the Sierras just sat there and spun their back wheels. It's a very wide front straight at Sandown, so I'm quite sure that Jimmy Richards here on the outside is going to make a huge lunge down the outside on Dick Johnson if he can get off with them very, very quickly. About 10 seconds away, heat number 2 of round 2, the Shell Australian Touring Car Nationals from Sandown Raceway. And John Bowe, I think, has got a problem with his car. Hand came out, but he's ready to go. He gets off slowly, and as expected, Richards goes straight down the outside. The problem was, though, that Mark Scaife missed the kick and was gobbled up by a whole fleet of Commodores as they go to the bottom corner.
I'll tell you what, the 2 Shell cars put a sandwich on the front of Mark Scaife there. Closed the door very effectively as he tried to leap off the line, but his teammate Richards just did the rocket up the outside, and he leads them round for the first lap. Tremendous start once again from the Nissan GTRs.
Jim knows what it's like to get up that inside line, and he knows he wants to be onto the back straight first, and he doesn't want anything but fresh air in front of him. But here, already challenged by John Bowe.
Here comes Bowie up the outside, car number 18.
Gee, there's
watch him try and get across very quickly to the left side of the road so he doesn't leave the gap open. No, he's able to hold it, and Dick Johnson of Queensland pulls it up into the 3rd spot. So it's fairly close. Thomas Mazira didn't get away to the best of start, and that looked like Peter Brock, who got away very well indeed. Scaife back in position number 6.
Okay, as we come up onto the right-left, going into the main straight. A challenge under brakes by Johnson. Having a go at Jim. John Bowe's already well clear.
Isn't this great stuff as we take our Nissan race cam?
And right behind Dick should be Mark Gibbs. I think I saw him there before we changed shots. He's not there. So Jim's left a little bit of a gap on the GIO car as they break at the end of the straight. But Mark Gibbs is right up there too. A new lease of life for the GIO car. And Peter Brock in 05. You can't keep him down. Mind you, this is the second heat. These tyres have already done the 20 laps in the first heat. So they'll be conscious of trying to conserve and stretch as much out of this rubber as they possibly can while still getting on with a hectic race.
Well, certainly Mark Gibbs is giving the GIO machine a good run. He's right in the slipstream behind the sister cars. This is a customer car built by Fred Gibson for Bob Forbes Corporation. And GIO, along with Windscreens O'Brien, have put a very nice team together here and running well in this second heat.
He's certainly keeping the pressure on the Nissan. Jimmy Richards. And there's Brocky, who's made the biggest comeback since the V8 Lazarus this morning. Seaton in bad shape, back in 11th spot, so he paid the penalty. And here comes the Nissan down on the inside of Brock.
Oh,
definitely. Mark Gibbs is really giving it hell here in the second heat. Very aggressive.
It was just a mild little touch. I don't think maybe an overrun. We'll see at the end of this straight. So John Bowe gets away from teammate Dick Johnson. Jimmy Richards, the next one, followed by Mark Gibbs, Mark Scaife, Thomas Mazira and Peter Brock.
Yeah, Mazira's just shot past Brock too. Brock's lost 2 places, one at the beginning of the straight, one at the end of the straight.
Well, certainly the Shell Sierras have got some pace here this weekend. They look good all weekend. John Bowe had provisional pole on Saturday night. Dick Johnson did well to win the qualifying race this morning. Got him up for a nice start on the first heat. Came in second behind John Bowe, and here they are running now 1-2 in the final race.
Brock's 7th position as we pick up on Thomas Mazira in the Holden Racing Team Commodore. They crest the hill, come down towards the S's. There's Mazira going through. And look at the little bimmer. This thing will get quicker.
Oh, hear the brakes lock.
Yes. He's got to be a little bit careful doing that to Peter Brock.
Now they've conserved their tyres, haven't they, Alan? Perhaps in the opening heat this morning. Think they're ready for a lash this afternoon.
Looks like a good policy. Tony Longhurst, no stranger to Sandown, and certainly knows that car like the back of his hand.
Watch this though, Longhurst will lose out in the horsepower sweepstakes as they come down the long front straight here.
Neil
And
Crompton.
he's tucked in with Neil Crompton looking for an inside edge, and Glenn Seaton just calming from the clouds in the blue number 30 car. So it's fair degree of traffic here.
Well, Tony said before the race that the real hope he has at Sandown, it's a power circuit. The car is really left behind by these powerful turbos and V8s on the straights. But he did say in the second heat, when the tyres on the bigger cars were starting to go south, the BMW would come into its own. It's looking very strong in these opening laps.
Well, he's in a good position here, and he's getting plenty of drafting. He might not have the speed on the straights that he'd like, but it's not the slowest car in the field by any stretch of the imagination, and he'll wring whatever is capable out of it.
Here they come now with Tony Longhurst trying to force away past Peter Brock. We take the race cam on Glenn Seaton Sierra as he comes up to the left-hander. He's now up to position number 10. Seaton to 10 with a lot of work still to do. It gives you an idea of the fairly tight and twisting layout here at Sandown, particularly around the top end of the circuit.
Seeing plenty of brake lock-ups there. We won't want too much of that. These tires on their last legs, they've done the 20 laps in the first heat, and certainly flat spotting them under brakes not going to augur well for the last 5 or 6 laps.
Well, Mark Gibbs doing a good job, as you said, Alan. He's managed to split the two Winfield cars with the GIO Insurance's car. Just ahead of this group, of course, Dick Johnson, who runs in second. And then it's a fair gap as they make the exit to that turn to Thomas Mazera, is followed by Peter Brock, Glenn Seaton, Neil Crompton, Tony Longhurst and Larry Perkins.
Still a quite relatively tight race. There's a bunch towards the back that can still compound on plenty of time in front of us.
No shortage of speed from the Shell Sierras, as we said earlier. John Bowe set a new lap record for Group A cars around Sandown, 1:14.81, which is tremendous speed and well under Jim Richards' lap record from last year. So there's been a new lease of life for the Dick Johnson Shell cars this year, it seems.
Well, I think the knobbling certainly helped. I don't know how much Dick and the Sierra boys have picked up, but has it made an appreciable difference, Alan, with the pop-off valve with the Nissan? And
you're asking me a political question, and this is a non-paid political broadcast.
Well, here they come down the front straight, looking at Tony Longhurst working away at Glenn Seaton. Now, Seaton's been able to get down on the inside.
Actually, Longhurst has lost a few positions there. Crompton now up behind the boss, Peter Brock, and Longhurst gets demoted. Wayne Park, yeah.
He started off the rear of the grid and has made his way up to 11th place, so he was hustling this morning, and he certainly is in the second heat here this afternoon.
The mobile car is still running 1-2 astern in their own position. Tony Longhurst up the back straight, and Wayne Park just shadowing the rear of the field, going to dart by and nail Tony Longhurst under. No, he thought better of it, and a wise man. Discretion is the better part of valor. That's a brave man that hits that inside lane up the top of the back straight.
Well, you know where the guy's going on the outside of you. He's joining you in the guardrail.
So a real tight bunch here. Larry Perkins right on Neil Crompton's back bumper bar, saying, come on, Neil, give it a bit more gun. Larry in the older VL body shape, just building a new car for later in the year, but using an old stalwart, old war horse here for Sandown.
Well, Crompton running in 9th spot, Larry is in 10. That's the order. Once again, as they go down to Triple M. And that gap is about the same. In fact, I think...
Yes, we've got Scapes past Mark Gibbs. Said, I think I'd like to get back up there where Jim is.
Just looking at the spread over the field. Certainly John Bowe, car number 18. Bowe extends his lead and is now 2.7 seconds, keeping in mind he won the first heat by almost 9 seconds this morning.
It's quite incredible too. He's still dipped into the 1 minute 15 second lap times on these older tyres. So the shell cars are really using the rubber effectively too.
Well, it shows that they've worked on a chassis package which has allowed those Dunlops to work a little bit more efficiently. They have had some bad runs in the past where the tires couldn't stand the strain they were giving them, but here today I think it's fair to say that it is a Dunlop day, and they do seem to have the Moz on the opposition.
Well, there's Dick Johnson, car number 17, and I think the Nissan is getting much closer this time. John Bowe still setting and holding that lead, but at this stage of the race, Jimmy Richards in car number 1 is starting to haul in Johnson, and Johnson sits about the same gap as probably 5 or 6 laps ago behind John Bowe.
Well, as long as he keeps his foot flat to the floor, and I don't think Dick knows any other position, he should have the horsepower based on the way we've been running all day.
It is extraordinary. Here we come. Glenn Seaton has a look down the inside of Thomas Mazzeo. Oh, look at Thomas.
He locked it up.
He's out of control.
And protecting the corner. You see, he unbalanced himself, slammed on the brakes, and...
Oops, and Wayne Park or Glenn Seaton may have been in the aftermath of all that.
Nasty one. That's life in the fast lane. That was definitely Thomas getting a little bit edgy, tried to protect the corner.
Yep, he was very, very late on the brakes too, from what I see.
And unsettled the car, locked up the rear, and he was wise to let it go. But that Armco was quite close to the circuit there in the S's. Here we go again.
Have a look at this on the replay. Thomas is already gone. He's off to Gowings here. And it starts to use all of the racetrack. It's headed onto the grass. There's guardrail coming up. But Seaton has gone through and just got the car totally, or there may have even been some oil there.
Possible.
Have a look, because he was sideways just about the same time as Thomas.
Now, if you look here, Thomas is really hard on the brakes, and that's when the car gets out of shape, and that's when he loses it. He's just a little bit out of shape there. He's offline.
He just waited a bit too long and ran out of ground. And unfortunately, Glenn had to spin as well. That's a pity for the Peter Jackson Sierra. Here we have Longhurst again on the back straight, being chased by
Wayne Park with a little bit.
Park.
Wayne makes a big dive down there, but that's not really the place to even think about it.
Well, he's tried that a couple of times now. He just doesn't quite have the steam. A little BMW flying through the S's. Reef around, accelerate up there. You can hear the distinctive engine sound of the BMW, a delightful noise. Well, I wouldn't call it a noise, delightful sound.
Brock up to 6th spot in the field. John Bowe still the leader from Dick Johnson, the 2 Shell Sierra teammates. And there is the gap, the visual gap, as John Bowe comes down, heading up to the left-hander at Triple M as we take our Shell race score. And that's the order on the racetrack at the moment. The 2 Shell Sierra boys, John Bowe and Dick Johnson, continue to lead, but right behind them you can see that Jimmy Richards is getting closer and closer. Mark Scaife runs in 4th, and 5th is Mark Gibbs. Back here at round 2 of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship continues at Sandown, and it's getting hot at the front of the field. They're over half distance now, with Dick Johnson running in the 2nd spot and Jimmy Richards closing all the time as we take the Nissan race cam down to the left-hander.
You can see the acceleration off that left-hander. The 4-wheel drive cars just leap out of the tight corners. Dick starting to lose it. He got a little bit tight there. Touch. You can't blame Jim for that. Dick had the same problem that Thomas Mazzeo just had. Just locked her up a bit under brakes and had to give way. That's the tires going off on him. Now here, horsepower taking over, ramrodding it up the back straight, and he said, I'll have a go. If he's got enough time, yes, he can come across.
Got to get across the inside.
You know one thing for sure, Jim Richards will never hit anybody in a corner like that. He might give you a little tap in a slow corner like we just experienced, but not a high-speed corner like that at the end of the back straight. And here, Dick definitely hurting. He's using The curbs everywhere. He's just losing control of the car at the pace he has to go, or the pace that Jim is forcing him to go. You'll see that Chelsea are just slopping around a bit.
Oh,
another bounce and a flip, and this time Dick definitely went.
Yep.
Jim driving forcefully, I'd have to say, not ungentlemanly. That was life in the fast lane. Dick Johnson definitely losing control of his car. And by that I mean the tires just getting soggy on him, and he just couldn't maintain the pace that was being exerted on him by the GTR.
Well, that begs the question now, has John Bowe got enough grunt to and enough rubber to get it to the checkered flag? Here's the two Nissans choking. Johnson now back to 5th in the field. Bowe gets away up the back straight.
He does have a handsome gap, Mike, but anything can happen, and he will now have to very, very consciously save the urge through the corners.
Okay, here he comes up on the inside, Jimmy Richards. Bang, there's a touch. Dick goes around, Richards goes through. Jim is able to get back on the black stuff, and off he goes.
Well, John Bowe's got 6.5 seconds. He should be able to nurse that lead, but he'll want to very, very determinedly hang on and nurse the tires now, not throw the gas on, just ease off every time he comes onto that main straight, and just save the tremendous energy that the tires have to soak up. The only thing holding them up.
Well, they've got about 8 laps to go here at Sandown for heat number 2 of the second round today, and Dick Johnson coming into the pits.
Dick will be a bit steamed up.
Okay, I think they're looking to pull a bit of that fender off, and maybe
he's going to throw some tires on,
yep,
take advantage, and I'm not going to go out there and drive any harder than I have to. Once they stop, they can put any tires they want onto it, and that's the penalty. But he'll have a brand new set now. He'll go out and watch a lap record come up here.
Well, lap times at the front have just about equalised now. Bauer is running 1:16.5 or high 16s, and the Nissans are into the low 17s. So if he can stabilise this gap, he should make it with 7 laps to go.
One thing you can do when you're in the lead, you've got an opportunity to gauge your drive based on the times of the people behind you. So John Bowe will be sitting there watching his 6.4, 6.3 gap. He'll be measuring it by the tenth of a fraction.
Well, Dick Johnson has rejoined the field in 15th spot. He'll probably pick up a couple of those on the way home. With about 7 laps remaining, the two Nissans run 2nd and 3rd, but John Bowe of Tasmania driving the number 18 Shell Sierra, and it's got
hairy as we went by, Michael. It was backfiring, and it could be the beginning of the end for him.
Well, Nissans are now matching Bowe's times. They're all in the mid to high 16s. So either Bowe's getting slower or the Nissans getting faster, but the car did sound particularly rough as it came past the grandstand that time. Wayne Park.
I was going to say they're making those rather strange noises with 7,500 RPMs. We noticed at Amaroo Park. But at this stage,
he appears to be okay,
yep,
up the back straight. Not on camera at the moment, but running, I would say, again, still about 6 seconds.
Gaggle of Commodores. Peter Brock, Neil Crompton, Larry Perkins, holding out the BMW of Tony Longhurst and Wayne Park in the Sierra.
Order is John Bowe, the race leader in the Shell Sierra, running in 2nd place. Jim Richards in the Winfield Nissan. 3rd spot to Mark Scaife in the 2nd of the Nissans. And then, of course, back there in 4th spot is Mark Gibbs in the GIO Nissan, and then Peter Brock. That's the order as Larry Perkins, Larry, and Dick Johnson.
These guys are getting... This is where the drivers are going to have to exert all the experience they've got. Larry saved that beautifully, but less experienced driver may have been in a lot of trouble there. That's 1,300 kilos of metal going for a ride, and the tires have said, look, we've done our bit. You're asking too much from us. Larry definitely skating around now. I think it's only a matter of time before Tony Longhurst gets the bite on him. Nice slipstream here up the front straight. Not quite close enough. The old Commodore still holding him off.
Going to take one big lick here under brakes as he goes through on the inside of Larry, so he moves up a spot.
He'd have difficulty matching a BMW under brakes, but Larry's got some good grunt out of the corner.
Larry didn't give it away.
Yeah.
No, he didn't. Let's have a look at a replay we've got for you. This incident with Larry Perkins, when Larry gets the tail out, there's Wayne Park in 35. He's jumped over the curb and he's gone straight out to South Melbourne. So Park off the racetrack and rejoins again. Perkins position number 7. It's been quite an outstanding drive for Larry Perkins. Beau leads now by 4.8 seconds.
So he'll be counting every lap to go now. It'll be a nightmare for him. This will be the longest 3 or 4 laps he's had for a long time, but still, by any measure, a reasonably comfortable lead from Jim Richards at the moment.
Oh, plenty of fisticuffs back here,
yeah,
too.
if you want to put the nose up inside Larry, you've got to fight for it. He doesn't give way.
Larry can make that car 13 feet wide if he wants to. He's a tough customer. Tony's trying every which way he can to get past him.
Castrol supporting Larry Perkins, a good long-standing associate sponsor of Perkins Engineering. Helped them many a mile along the way.
They come out on the run down to Triple M, and once again Longhurst is just playing giant killer here today, trying to get down the inside of Larry Perkins, pick up one more spot at fairly critical points, particularly on the big tracks like Sandown and Eastern Creek. He'll be far more comfortable, I would think, at the short tracks like Winton. As they come up the back straight, there's the horsepower disadvantage that Tony Longhurst suffers. Perkins still in 7th spot.
The GTR showing a good turn of speed here. Scott Bow is some 7/8 tenths slower than the Nissans on that lap. It could be involved in traffic.
Coming across the line now, 4 laps to go for John Bow. And you're right, they are just a little bit closer as we follow this cut and thrust between Larry and Tony Longhurst.
We've got 2 professional drivers, and neither giving any quarter. And Tony nipping in there, taking the drag while he can. He's got a pretty nice position now. I don't know. No, Larry eases away.
We told you about that gap. From 4.8 seconds Bow leading. It's now down to 3.7. So the 2 Nissan GTRs are gaining on Bow. He gets away from them in the straight line. Both up the top.
Oh.
You wouldn't go away from this.
Tony is not throwing in the towel. He's throwing everything he has in this little bimmer. Everything he can through the tight corners. He knows he's going to lose Larry once they get onto the straights. But he is all over him on the tight stuff, maybe hoping he can push him into a mistake. Meanwhile, Wayne Park gets a better run out of the corner, and look at that.
Tony gave him the wave, said take it up the inside. Nice sporting gestures, and yet all of them driving 100-mile-an-hour plus.
As both of them got through that time, Tony felt the horsepower edge that the Holdens enjoyed going up the back straight, so he had to drop on the end of the queue that time. Now he comes out on the inside of Park. Better be on the wrong side of him for the next turn.
That BMW, even on a renowned power circuit like Sandown, proving what a fabulous little race car it is. Consistent lap times, and just nips and tucks in and out of these bigger cars. He can't match them for outright straight line speed, but watch as they come under the brakes at the end of the main straight. Sensational little car. Wayne Park, meanwhile, showing a good turn of speed as he sneaks up on Perkins.
2.5 laps remaining, and that gap from John Bow to the 2 Winfield Nissans starting to erode fairly smartly. He gets to the top of the hill as we see whether or not Tony can get down the inside here. No, he can't.
Look how much ground he's made up.
He'll pull alongside, but that's about it until the top of the hill when he's got to close under brakes.
John Bow will definitely be worrying now, and it's a real sign of pressure tactics. The GTR's sneaking up in his rearview mirror. He won't be able to avoid them. By that I mean he won't be able to avoid seeing them in his rearview mirror.
2 laps to go for race leader John Bow in the Shell Sierra, and there you can see the 2 Nissans gaining, and he's dancing on the tyres.
It's less than 3 seconds now.
2.2.
He's counting it down to the wire, and knows that he's just got so much energy left in these tires to do just 2 more laps.
Johnson.
He's not throwing it around. Cautiously through these tight ones, which is where the tires get, but Jim Richards isn't fooling around. He's throwing his around.
He's certainly gaining quickly. Bow tries to get whatever rubber is left on it and a bit of canvas to at least give him some traction up the back straight, and he gets it too, runs away, but this is where he loses the advantage, this part of the circuit.
I'm amazed at how well these GTRs use their tyres, Alan. It's a 1,400 kilogram car, as I'm sure you're aware. And yet, after 20, 30, 35 laps of hard racing, this is the car that's reducing its lap times.
Yes, well, that's the advantage of having 25% of the job being done by each tire instead of 50%. And in that respect, they do have the advantage. But credit where it's due. They form a fine team. They drive it well.
Here he comes out of the corner. Still chasing John Bowe. Crowd warming to this. The Nissan's been trumped at Sandown as Bowe goes right across the line. 1 lap to go. And there is the gap. There's John Bowe, and right behind him the 2 Nissan GTRs. Now it's fairly critical.
They're close now.
Yep. As they get through the next 2 corners and then head up the back straight. Now if he can get...
And Mark Scaife has taken 2nd place from Jim Richards.
Good of now. He's got to try and get it all down and squeeze as much as he can out of it when he's got it in a straight line.
I should give credit to the Johnson engine builders. They've had some remarkable power here this weekend. They knew they were coming to a power circuit, and they gave their drivers some good engines. So the boys back at the workshop, compliments.
And besides that, keeping in mind John Bowe blew an engine this morning and they had to replace an engine in just over an hour, 90 minutes to be exact. And he has just had an outstanding day and a good result for the Shell Johnson team as John Bowe still leads them down to the pits for the final time. Everyone standing next to the pit wall. Bowie's been chasing one of these for ages, and today he wins this one on merit all the way. Last turn. Spectators stand in the grandstand. John Bowe. Clean sweep today for the Johnson team at Sandown. They take round number 2. Mark Scaife in the Nissan finishes in 2nd, and 3rd place will go to Jim Richards. And he deserves all the accolades today, John Bowe.
He did extremely well.
Pressure drive. The Mark Gibbs car, next one across the line. I tell you, there's absolutely daylight. The guys are feeling the pinch with tyres and maybe even running the 2 heats. I'm not sure, but anyway, we'll talk about that. Checkered flag for John Bowe. Let's check them out on the Shell race score. John Bowe takes race number 2, round 2 here at Sandown today. Mark Scaife in the Winfield Nissan places 2nd. Jimmy Richards in the 2nd of the Nissan's 3rd, and Mark Gibbs in the 3rd of the Nissan's places 4th. And rounding out the 5, Peter Brock in the Mobile Commodore. Back at Sandown in just a moment.
Well, the Nissan GTRs once again a dominant force in Australian touring car racing, but surprise, surprise, they're not in the winner's seat today. But in 3rd place, Jimmy Richards, well done.
Thank you very much.
The Nissan, you said to me at Amaru you thought it might struggle a bit. Obviously the performance here today was better than you may have expected.
Well, not really. I think in the first heat, I couldn't see Bowie at all in front, so he was a long way ahead. But of course, our cars are a little bit easier on the tyres, and that makes it good for us in the 2nd heat.
Okay, well done, Jimmy. Mark Scaife, 2nd place. Well done. Now, you'd be looking pretty good for the championship now with a win at Amaru and 2nd here.
We've only had 2. I think there's about 7 to go or something, so let's not count the chickens. But, obviously the cars were a lot better here this weekend than we thought. Being four-wheel drive, the tyres were fantastic, and in the 2nd race we give a bit of cheek.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Well done. But in 1st place, John Bowe. Well done, John. 2 wins from 2 starts. I must say that's a great return to form for the Ford Sierra.
Certainly is, Mark. It's a great effort by all the guys in the Shell team. They made a very good car for me to drive today, and the Dunlop tyres were tremendous, so we've really made some inroads lately.
Well done, John. To make the presentation, Tom Smith from the Shell company.
John, it gives me great pleasure to give you this sash. Congratulations.
Tom, it gives me great pleasure to accept it. Thank you.
Great performance from the Shell team. We should have a good contest at Symmons Plains.